again, and in support of my new book on the Schofield Truck Tank, I'm very proud to show you the original trials footage, never seen before, of the mobile wooden mock-up built on the truck and the mild steel prototype. Altogether this footage is just over 11.5 minutes. So without further ado, let's go through that. We'll press play and I'll give you some commentary as we go as to some features. If you don't like the sound of my voice, just turn it down and enjoy watching the vehicle. Let's go. Thank you. Okay, so we've got quite a bit to go through here. But first up is just over a minute or so of footage of this wooden mock-up being inspected by some suited gentlemen. Watch as the vehicle comes round this roundabout. The right-hand side is clearly less developed or worked on than the left-hand side with that unusual handbrake-looking gizmo. The inner wheels at the front are responsible for both steering and braking. The rear wheels are on the outside. They attach to the same drive hub as would drive the sprocket. We'll get to see the changeover system later. This system was so simple. It allowed the vehicle to maintain one engine, one transmission, one driveline, and with a simple change of a wheel and an adapter plate to switch from wheels to tracks or vice versa. Really, there has not been a system like this before or since. Notice, pay close attention to both the winding handles on top of the cab there. Those will be later moved inside, and to the unusual angled plates over the front wheels. When we come onto the mild steel prototype, you'll see that too has changed to a rounded plate. Here we see the vehicle being reversed into its workshop. Quite what happened to this vehicle is a little unclear. Schofield was unwilling to dismantle it, but clearly it was taken apart at some point. And next we're going to move on to have a look at the mild steel prototype. Okay, so moving on, we're on to the mild steel prototype. As you can see, it bears a good resemblance to the wooden mock-up. There haven't been a great deal of changes. That angled wooden front, which was divided into two parts over the front wheels, has been replaced with a simple rounded scoop. The track layout, now with the tracks fitted, becomes clear that it goes really quite high, almost World War I style. Pay close attention to the bogies as the vehicle comes round. The majority of the weight was borne only on those inner pairs of wheels. This was one of the major problems with the design and something which needed to be fixed for later on. There are two unusual donut-shaped metal fittings, one on each side. The left one has a wheel in it, the right one does not. These were the holders for the rear wheels. In fact, the front wheels on this vehicle did not need to be changed, they could be left in place. Now you've seen the turret be rotated, and the reason that they were rotating it is because that A17 Tetrarch style weird flippy up hatch cannot open when the turret is pointed forward because the gun fouls on it. And if the gun was even longer, then the problem would be just as severe. What it means is that the turret is almost invariably seen turned either to the rear or to the side, and this has led to some unhelpful commentary either online or in photos, which has got the vehicle back to front. It is odd that the turret is that far back. That would be one of the changes to make to the design, to put the turret more centralized, make it bigger, put a better armament in it. But at the back, it's where it needed to be on this vehicle. It's almost, it has to be said, a bit of an afterthought. In fact, the turret is even removed for some of the testing that takes place. Nonetheless, the vehicle was quite impressive. It does what it was meant to do, and it got interest. And here we see suited gentlemen, one of which is probably Schofield, and the one in uniform could well be someone like General Puttick. It's unclear which general officer it is. With the turret turned to the rear, you can see how it would be possible to get the false impression of the vehicle the wrong way around. Now, there is a series of trials footage now of the mild steel prototype running through its paces forwards and backwards, left and right, and doing various turns off-road. Usually, for whatever reason, the rear plates are missing, which shows you the rear axle. That should be covered, as you saw in the last clip near General Puttick or whomever that was. And one primary issue you might already have noticed is that there is a lot of track slap or track movement on the top, and that's because it's unsupported, because the frames are actually in the down position at the moment. That again is something that could have been changed if that was really deemed to be a problem. Although it's off-road and there's obviously a lot of crud being moved by the tracks, there's not a lot being thrown up onto the roof of the vehicle. And although it looks like there might not be any mud flaps, there is in fact a very short set of mud flaps just over the rear hubs towards the back. What you can see in the way that this vehicle is being manoeuvred is it's maybe more manoeuvrable than might have been predisposed to think of it, because of its length, because of its size, because of its ungainly appearance. It's surprisingly nippy. It would have been even better had they been able to replace the rear axle from the Chevrolet truck to something much more suitable like the ClearTrack rear axle. Now, as we go through this footage, you will see some bits repeated. That is not me, that is how the footage originally came. There are some little parts out of sequence as well. I have not changed those, so what you are seeing is the vehicle exactly as it was originally shown. So, during these trials, you get to see various views of this mild steel prototype getting put through its paces across various types of terrain. New Zealand's very rugged country. There's often bemused animals staring at top-secret prototypes making their ways across relatively flat grassland. There is, of course, a lot of tussocky, heavily disturbed ground as well. That came across in the testing. That was difficult to traverse for wheeled vehicles. This vehicle managed it just fine. So what you were really witnessing is New Zealanders designing a tank for use on their own terrain, and really in doing so coming up with, this ingenious wheel and track machine, which then, hey, maybe it has other uses as well, and other people might be interested in it. Going over various obstacles, the position of the turret at the rear really is illustrated as a disadvantage when you see the vehicle going upwards over a hill, because as it comes upwards, the front of the vehicle blocks the depression of the machine gun. So with the turret that far back, it's basically unable to fire forwards properly. Now, this is, as I said before, a top secret machine, so to disguise the fact it's a tank, it's great. They took the turret off, but then they also decided to take it for a series of test drives around some public streets as well. After all, the road is there, why not use it? Goodness knows what anyone who saw this thing must have thought of it as it's blasting along. The important thing to note is not that, oh hey, there's a weird and wonderful top secret tank blasting around, but to look at this as it's still on its wheels. Its front wheels and its rear wheels. The track is lifted out of place. Yes, there's not much clearance, but it's moving very easily on a road. This vehicle would have no difficulty in getting from A to B on any public highway. It certainly didn't weigh any more than many trucks of its era. So herein lies the advantage of Schofield's system, even if the vehicle did look more than a little ungainly at times. Witness now the vehicle moving from wheels to tracks. The inside parts of those diamond-shaped pieces are being pushed down as the outer ends are lifted up. The inner wheels of the bogie push the track onto the ground. Those chains, by the way, are just there to hold the track out of the way when it's in use of the road. As it continues to push down, the rear wheels get lifted up until that rear wheel is actually clear. And here we see some repeated footage of the vehicle once more. But just to go back 1 second, with the wheels off the ground,
You have to remove the rear wheels because you have to insert the changeover adapter plate. The front wheels don't actually have to be removed at all. And indeed, on this mild steel prototype, there's no stowage arrangement for those front wheels. So clearly they were intended to be left in place. It's only the rear wheels that have their prescribed stowage in those little donut-shaped devices on the rear sides of the tank. Truck tank, I should say. So it gained a lot of interest. You can see for what was a one-off vehicle, the people witnessing it were clearly impressed, /interested, /bemused by what they were seeing. This was unlike any other vehicle they had ever seen before. They probably had experience with common vehicles like a universal carrier. Well, this vehicle could do many of the same roles as a universal carrier. It could also do more roles as a universal carrier. In fact, really, if he'd been allowed to develop this a little more, it's not hard to think that Schofield might have come up with a vehicle better than the pilot vehicle, the one after this vehicle. Something with a bit more armor and a little bit more firepower and obviously a radio. So neither this vehicle nor actually the pilot vehicle which followed it ever got as far as a radio, which is unfortunate. That clearly would have been absolutely essential for the sort of work that this vehicle was going to have to perform in terms of driving out quickly, identifying the enemy, locating the enemy, reporting back where it was, and then engaging the enemy with its machine guns and or cannon. So, because this is repeated, that's given us an opportunity to witness this changeover process again. All told, take about 10 minutes for the power takeoff from the transmission to force down that beam which controlled the two diamond-shaped track units. And with the rear wheel off the ground, the rear wheel has to be, as I said, removed so that the transfer plate could be put on. And here we see them undoing this rear wheel and then adding the conversion plate. And when you see it, you really realize just how simple this conversion is, because this adapter plate simply mounts between the outside and the inside of the hub, a few quick turns of some nuts, and hey presto, we are ready to go on a track instead of on wheels. If you discount the time it might take to stow wheels if you were in a rush, then hey presto, you could make this go even more quickly. At some point during the trials, Schofield sought advice from the US Ordnance Board, and some of the advice that came back from there was that they kind of liked it. One of the key features was maybe there was a way of retaining those wheels in place. This would have saved time. A little clutch system could have been adapted to simply transfer power between wheels and tracks, but leaving the wheels in place would have saved time. We wouldn't have to have removed a wheel. We wouldn't have to have added a an adapter plate, and more importantly, we wouldn't have to have stowed the wheels either. The wheels would even have added some minor benefit in terms of mobility by preventing bogging down of the vehicle or stopping getting stuck on a ditch, something like that. So if that could have been done, there too was another opportunity to improve this design. As it was, Schofield must have been pretty pleased with what he had produced. You can see from this footage the vehicle is clearly perfectly capable on-road, on wheels, and off-road, on tracks. If the off-road part was a smooth, hard surface, there's no reason to suppose that a vehicle on wheels would not have been able to traverse that just as well. Obviously, some thick, tussocky grass would have been impassable. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed watching this footage. This has never been shown before. And if you want to know more about the Schofield, please do go to FWD Publishing on Amazon.com and look for the Schofield Truck Tank book by Andrew Hills, yours truly. I thank you very much for your time. If you do wish to support this channel, my work, or my research, my books, anything else like that, then please do consider going to Patreon. If nothing else, please do follow FWD Publishing on Facebook. Thank you very much. Have a good night.